Y'all see it? Okay.
Yep. Okay, we are recording. Thank you everyone for joining us this evening for our Earth Day Everyday webinar series. Tonight's topic is on light pollution, but we do appreciate you guys all being here tonight. We are recording this evening, and this webinar will be available online on our website, which we can put in the chat to let you guys know where to go to get that stuff. Just a couple of housekeeping things. If you have any questions for tonight's speaker, please direct them into the chat to me, Steve Yerjo, your host. I'm one of the county agents who works on the team to bring these webinars to you guys. Joining me tonight as well is Dr. Doug Zemeckis, colleague down in Ocean and Atlantic and Monmouth counties. He will be helping in the background to help troubleshoot any issues and to help provide support for this evening. But if you have any questions, feel free to send them out to me using the chat function as well. I see someone discovered the emojis that you can send little clapping hands and other things during that. Feel free to do that as well. But any questions, please forward them to me. Welcome to our Earth Day Everyday webinar series for the fall. The title is What a Wonderful World, an Environmental Jukebox for New Jersey. These webinars are a partnership between the Earth Day Everyday program and Doug and the Marine Extension Program seminar series. So we try to have some environmental issues, but also some marine issues that affect the environment as well. These webinars have been going on for 5 years, since 2020, and they're geared towards providing information to folks that you can incorporate into your everyday life. So we try to incorporate some things that you guys can do at home after you learn about the topic at hand, and tonight being with light pollution. Just some housekeeping. As I mentioned, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box, direct them towards myself. Once you get to the chat box, it should look at the bottom of your screen or your device. It looks like 2 word bubbles. Just click on that and you should be able to direct who you send that chat to. So send it to me and put your questions in there, and that would be great. Please make sure that everybody stays muted during the presentation, just to keep the noise down. If you want to go to the next slide for me, Steve, that would be great. At the end of tonight's presentation, we will be providing a poll, a quick survey for you guys to fill out, just to evaluate the program, what you were able to learn from this evening, etc. But because we do that through Rutgers, you're considered part of this research study to determine, the effectiveness and the ability of these programs to educate folks and to actually, do any sort of behavior change at home. So this is basically a slide talking about consent. The first question that you'll have in the poll is, do you consent to taking it? If you do, please say yes and then fill out the poll. If you do not, you can say no, and then you do not have to fill out the other questions that are there. And it's entirely voluntary. But if you have any questions, Amy Rowe, who is part of our team, is the one that you need to contact with any questions or information as well. If you want to move to the next slide, that'd be great, Steve. So Rutgers University, being a public university, we try to provide as many programs as possible to as wide an audience as possible. And we try to make all of our programs as accessible to those folks who are able to do it. If you feel that, we haven't fully done that or made this fully accessible for folks, you feel free to, use the phone number that's on the screen here, the 848 number, to let us know what could be done better in the future to help make that accessible and make it open for all and inclusive. So that would be fantastic. If you want to go to your first slide, Steve. Thank you again for joining us tonight. Tonight's topic is on light pollution. We try to make these programs free for everybody, but we do accept donations through the Environmental Stewards Program to help provide internships and education for folks around the state. So I will be putting that information in the chat so you guys can see that as well. But tonight, let's get moving on to the topic at hand. Tonight's topic is Blinded by the Light, a case for responsible lighting practices, where we'll be talking about light pollution. And tonight's speaker we have is Steve Mariconda. So if it's not confusing enough, there are 2 Steves who are presenting this evening. Steve is actually a DarkSky International delegate who educates folks on light pollution and its environmental impact in New Jersey. And we are very proud to say he's a recent Rutgers graduate, getting his master's in public health. He actually looked at the effect of light and light pollution on people's circadian rhythms. And maybe he'll explain that in his talk, what that means. So if you don't know what that is, hopefully you'll have a better handle on that as well. Thank you, Steve, for doing this tonight and talking to us about light pollution. Feel free to get started. Once again, if you have any questions, send them to me in the chat. But thank you again, Steve, and why don't you take it away?
Great. Yeah, thank you for having me. So you said my name is Steve Mariconda. Been a delegate for DarkSky, or the New Jersey chapter, which we started about 2 years ago. And I'm also the chair of the Saddlebrook Green team. So I'm just, trying to do these presentations around New Jersey, spread the word about light pollution. So I'll actually start out with a little opening up the room a little bit. If anyone types in the chat, maybe like there's a little quote from Martin Luther King Jr. "Only in the darkness can you see the stars." Love that quote. Does anyone have a story maybe, or a time that they actually went out and saw a sky full of stars, like in a really rural area, maybe? Maybe like one or two people, if you want to like.
Once I did in Hawaii.
Oh, nice. On the Big Island?
No, it was actually on Oahu, looking out over the ocean, and it was beautiful. I saw Scorpio.
Really cool. Yeah, Hawaii is known for its astronomy. It's really good. Dark skies out there. Thanks for sharing that. Anyone else? Maybe one more?
Okay, Steve, a couple of people are actually sending it directly to me, and somebody said yes on coastal Maine.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Somebody else said Acadia National Park. So Maine's
Maine,
a popular one.
Mhm.
Some people are saying in Colorado, they awoke and saw a meteor shower. So there's a few people who have been lucky enough to see some of the night sky. And we do have Noreen with her hand up as well.
Very cool. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, those are all good spots. In Colorado, Maine. There's even some spots in New York State, honestly. You could see the good night sky in the Catskills or in the Adirondacks. So very cool. We're going to discuss why that is. You could see it some places, but not other places. So first, a little bit about DarkSky. They're like the main organization that tackles light pollution worldwide. They started in Arizona in the 1980s, and they have chapters now all around the world. Like I said, we just started our New Jersey chapter about 2 years ago now, and we're making some pretty good headway. And we're also teamed up with the Sierra Club, New Jersey chapter. They have a light pollution committee. So a lot of our chapter work has been organized with Sierra Club. Also, we're partnering with Audubon because light pollution very heavily affects birds, as we'll discuss, and other wildlife. And even the Native Plant Society has been on board with us recently. I did a talk there. And because, believe it or not, artificial light has an effect on plants in general, like native plants and on pollinators, which threatens our native plants in New Jersey. And of course, native plants are very important for our ecosystems. And ANJEC, probably one of our biggest partners here, just the Association for New Jersey Environmental Commissions. Environmental commissions and green teams in general have a really big role to play when it comes to working to reduce light pollution. Municipalities have a lot of control of this actually because of home rule in the state of New Jersey. And I want to add Rutgers to this list. As a Rutgers alum, and I know that the cooperative extension, you guys are doing awesome stuff. So I think this is an area where we can really work together, reducing light pollution. But first, what is light pollution? I define it as the excessive, misdirected, obstructive use of artificial light at night. Basically, light going where you don't need it, or light being on when you don't need it. It washes out the night sky as sky glow. Light trespass is light shining through your bedroom window, disrupting your sleep. Too much artificial light at night also disrupts our circadian rhythm, our sleeping patterns and such. And glare, which is too much light shining right in your eye. This little depiction here just shows a demonstration of maybe the night sky in New York City versus the night sky out in the middle of Maine. Quite a difference there. Just to go into a little more detail, give you some visuals. Circadian rhythm disrupting light. Essentially, I mean, I'm sure you've heard that people's smartphones, right, might be like interfering with people's sleep because you get that bright light right next to your eyes. But just in general, we have this 24-hour society now where we're always kind of bathed in artificial light at night. We didn't evolve to do so. We evolved the brightest lights that we were exposed to before the invention of artificial light would be candlelight, firelight, or on the full moon. So I'll go into a little more detail as to how this affects our sleep and other health-related things for humans. Glare, you might be familiar with this from the newer LED headlights on our vehicles and our cars. Just having too much light shine directly into your eye has impacts on your vision in terms of, your pupils constricting. Light trespass, having too much light going in through your bedroom window. And sky glow, you can see it very well depicted here, just how like a lot of this excessive light from unshielded light fixtures, because a lot of people use floodlights, and a lot of that light spills out into the night sky, so it's essentially wasted light. You may have seen this from an airplane at night flying over New Jersey, New York City. Excuse me 1 second. And this little diagram here just demonstrates a visual of all the different types of light pollution. You have your useful light shining on the intended area, but then because many people we tend to use unshielded fixtures or not fully shielded fixtures, so there's all this extra spill light that goes diagonally up into the night sky or onto your property, causing light trespass or right into your eyes. So all that light is basically wasted light. It's not useful and has consequences. So we'll go through some of those. So why should you care about light pollution? Take your pick. It's not just stargazing. Astronomers were the first people to really talk about light pollution, maybe back in the 1920s, 1930s. But really, it's come to encompass a lot of different, it impacts many different aspects of life on Earth. You got human health, your neighbors' visibility, insects, birds, our wallets, right? Because all this excessive lighting, it's kind of wasting electricity, which is usually produced through fossil fuel burning. I'll start with human health. This is what I did my capstone on at Rutgers. The essential mechanism that's discussed in the literature about artificial light at night affecting our health is that artificial light, and this is something that's true about all mammals, whether they're nocturnal or diurnal, which means awake during the day. Nocturnal means awake at night. Exposure to light at night, or exposure to light in general, like daylight, sunlight, suppresses melatonin. So during the day, we want our melatonin to be suppressed because the melatonin is the sleep hormone. So during the day, we're evolved in the case of humans, we are most active during the day, and our melatonin is suppressed. But then at night, when it's darker, under natural darkness, melatonin would actually be released when there's a lack of a light cue. So when we're bathing in bright artificial light, say at midnight, right, we're watching the TV really bright, or we have all our overhead lights on, this suppresses melatonin. So this has impacts on our sleep, but it also has impacts. Melatonin is a main part of our immune system, actually. So there's American Medical Association has published studies on this, that too much exposure to blue rich white light at night increases our risk of different types of cancer. There's just still associations, but the thought is that the lack of melatonin makes it so that our immune system is less likely to catch budding cancer cells. So like things like hormonal cancers, breast cancers, there's been studies showing in nurses who work night shifts, there's an increased risk of breast cancer, prostate cancer, et cetera. And this is just a little visual demonstrating that, that 24-hour light dark cycle, because we have a thing called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is in our hypothalamus in our brain. And it really is like the main biological clock, or also known as the circadian rhythm. So, and the main driver of circadian rhythms, not just in humans, but in all living things, including plants and fungi, it's the light dark cycle of night and day that has these that basically initiates the different cycles. And these are intricate things that have many health consequences we're still learning about. And working in the environmental aspects here, there hasn't been a species studied so far that is not affected in some way by artificial light exposure at night. These are just a group of different species that are affected. Studies show that frogs and toads ribbit less when they're exposed to bright light at night, which impacts their mating cycles. Salamanders come out later than normal, interrupting their foraging time, therefore they eat less. Artificial light on the edge of forests disrupts bats that would normally come out feeding on insects. It messes with predator-prey relationships. Like, for instance, like spiders might build large webs around lights. You might have seen this because it gives them because all of the insects are flying around the light, and it makes it so that there's a decline in the flying insects population, or giving an advantage to the spiders. There's multiple examples like this. Birds are very heavily affected by artificial light because it basically throws them off of their migration path, like during the fall and spring migrations, leading them to like go towards the light and get disoriented. They get exhausted. They collide with buildings. So this picture here, there's people that literally go around in cities sometimes to collect dead birds because they've collided with buildings. And you see on the left there, those are the twin tower lights that shine up. And that's also happens to be during peak migration, unfortunately. And New York City is right, and New Jersey are within the Northeast Flyway. So once in a while, they have to actually turn these lights off so that the birds can disperse, because otherwise they just don't complete their migration. There's just some more imaging here about that. Many birds such as warblers, thrushes, and sparrows, ducks, and geese are nocturnal migrators. A lot of birds migrate at night, and they use celestial navigation, just like sailors did going over the sea, right? So that light pollution will disrupt their view of the stars to do that. But also, yeah, they just get drawn towards cities. It's like an evolutionary instinct. And there's some legislation pending in New York actually to address this by having like unnecessary lights on the New York skyline like turn off, especially during migration, or using curtains, and also using less reflective types of glass for windows. Just some strategies there. So this is something that DarkSky has been working with Audubon Society, that their Lights Out campaign, just to protect those birds, right? Turn off unnecessary lights or have the lights shine down. Marine life, you got like turtles not being able to find their way back to sea. I'll go a little more into detail about that. But also, like, if there's too much artificial light shining on an ocean surface, for instance, the algae that normally the zooplankton that normally come up to eat the algae won't come up to eat the algae, which leads to an increased risk of algal blooms, which I'm sure you've heard of along the Jersey Shore. Coral reefs are affected. Atlantic salmon change their behavior because of artificial light exposure. So, and this is like, a budding area of scientific research. Like I said, it started out with astronomy and human health, and there's more and more studies coming out every month, in fact, regarding artificial light and some of the negative consequences. But don't worry, it's not all doom and gloom. We'll get to the solutions. The turtle is a good example. Is that the mom sea turtle will come back to the beach where she was hatched to lay her eggs. And when the hatchlings do hatch, their evolutionary instinct is to go towards the ocean, because the ocean is actually the brighter area, because it was reflecting moonlight and starlight. That was the case for millions of years. But now humans come along and build their oceanfront towns, and now that's brighter than the ocean. So the evolutionary instinct is for these hatchlings to go towards the town, and they get hit by cars and such. So, but there are coastal towns from North Carolina down to Florida that are, catching up on this, and they're either turning the lights off after a certain time or using redder and like better lights, basically, that don't shine so much towards the ocean, and that does help a little bit. Insects, probably one of the most heavily affected groups of creatures. I'm sure you've all seen bugs flying around either a campfire or flying around a light fixture. And this is not because they want to be there. It's because there was a really good study about this, which, by the way, I'm going to link all the scientific literature to you guys so you guys can see what backs this up. A recent study was saying that the main reason why insects fly around a light fixture is because they think it's the moon, because evolutionarily that was, the bright light would shine at their backs. But because the light is like in one place and it's not far away, they'll fly with their backs to the light for hours and hours until they get exhausted. They don't complete their mating patterns or pollination, which butterflies get a lot of credit for pollination, but moths are the main nighttime pollinators. A lot of plants are pollinated at night, and moths are very heavily affected by artificial light at night. Not having that leading to a decline of pollinators, and that decline in pollinators affects our agriculture. It affects native plants. So, the ecosystems are very intricate, and introducing this stimuli into the ecosystem does have effects. Fireflies are a good example. They literally make their own bioluminescence. So having any type of light around when fireflies are out leads to fireflies not being able to communicate. And, they use their light for mating and stuff to draw mates. So these are all things that have an effect in addition to pesticides and other environmental harms. And if you've heard about the insect decline, I mean, there's been a large insect decline over the past 100 years, artificial light being one of the contributors along with pesticides. And we simply can't afford to lose more insects. Insects are like essential to the entire food web. If there was no insects, like the whole food web could collapse. So not really good for humans and other creatures. I talked about moths. There's an example right there. So if you also don't like having bugs flying around you all the time, just keep your house dark after a certain time, or only use the light when you need it. Have less bugs. Mosquitoes too. There are studies that show that there's correlations between areas with more artificial light, brighter artificial light at night, and an increase in mosquito lifespan and population within your community. So something to think about. Plants. So you might not think, that's plants being responsive, but they're actually very responsive to light. They have their photosynthetic cells that they depend on for absorbing radiation from the sun and converting it into energy. But they also use these photocells in their leaves to detect the changing of seasons. So it's not just the temperature of the fall that leads plants to to lose their pigments and then have the leaves fall. It's also, they use the light when they notice that the days are getting shorter. That's also an environmental cue for trees to lose their leaves, deciduous trees. And as you can see here, this has been demonstrated in studies that if there's street lights right next to a deciduous tree like this, it will like not lose its leaves when it's supposed to. You can see on that tree right there that it's still there, because it confuses them into thinking, oh, maybe it is still summer. We're still getting sunlight. They can't tell the difference between sunlight and artificial light. So this increases the risk of frost, because the reason why plants lose their leaves is to conserve energy and also to avoid frost damage. So, and the reverse actually happens in the spring too, where trees next to a street light will bud early when it's still too cold. But aside from trees, because I'm just talking about trees here, but all plants have circadian rhythms, or like sleep-wake cycles, just like animals do, and so do fungi. So there are studies that show that plants actually grow better when they're exposed to just darkness at night, when they would normal, because that evolutionarily that makes sense, right? They're exposed to daylight, they get the energy they need, and then they have a repair process at night, which is similar to the way animals sleep. So some food for thought there. And energy waste. According to DarkSky International, I still want to see the methodology from where they got this, but it's estimated that, with people using light levels brighter than recommended or needed, and using unshielded fixtures where the light shines up, like I said, the wasted light going up, it's estimated that in the US, we spend about $3.3 billion per year on unneeded lighting, which amounts to about 21 million tons of CO2 being burned. So yeah, in a world where we're trying to tackle climate change, we're trying to reduce waste, even though we're using LED lights, which you get more lumens per watt from an LED light, but people end up usually being like, okay, great, I can make it 3 times as bright and use the same amount of electricity, but we don't necessarily need to do that. We can actually conserve energy by using only the amount of light that we need. I might just skip the activity. Can anyone here find the potential stalker? Someone can unmute if they want to point out where is the guy hiding? Or I can just say. So yeah, I mean, you might notice
The
that
fence.
oh, there he is. He's right there, right? But he's not really that visible, right? Why do you think that is?
He's in the glare.
Exactly. Well, yeah. So you got that floodlight shining right at your eye, or the camera lens. There's similarities between the human eye and a camera lens. So essentially, that light is glare, right? It's not really serving you any purpose. The point of having the light there is, theoretically to see your surroundings, but you have that light shining right in your eye, causing your pupils to constrict, which leads you to see everything else around the light as being darker. Simply holding your hand up there, providing shielding to your eye so that your pupils can dilate and you can see a lot better. So it's a simple concept of more lighting is not always better. That's the myth. More lighting is always safer, but if you're blasting that light everywhere and it's shining directly into your eyes, causing glare, it's not really doing you any good. So the reality is that well-designed lighting makes things safer. Here's just a map of the United States. We have satellites that go around the Earth, studying the Earth. And something they do is they do a lot of nighttime imaging. This is a composite, but just shows all that light. That's not really useful. Like, we need our light to be on the ground and on surfaces so that people can find their way around at night. We don't need it shining up into the night sky, into space. So it might look pretty, but it is blocking out our view of the stars when it comes to this and wasting energy. And it's estimated that light pollution gets worth about 2% per year increase in light pollution. Luckily, it's not as bad as the 2025 image here, but I think it's because maybe people are starting to learn about it and do something about it. And only 2 out of 10 people, they estimate, can actually see the Milky Way where they live. That image right there is, that's with a high exposure camera, but essentially with the naked eye, if you go up to the Adirondacks or up to Maine, you can see the Milky Way. You can actually see the core of the Milky Way with your naked eye. And there, maybe some places in New Jersey, Long Beach Island, say June or July, when we're facing towards the core, and if you look towards the ocean where it's really dark, you can actually see the Milky Way. If you look that way, if you look the other way, you'll see a lot of light pollution. But Cape May, up by High Point State Park and Delaware Water Gap, those are some areas you still can see the Milky Way. It's not like in its full detail, but you can see it faintly. So, but of course, our ancestors for millions of years, for hundreds of thousands of years, have been able to see the night sky in all its beauty. So, but there's a way we can get back there. A little story about the LA earthquake in 1994 to show how disconnected we are from seeing the night sky. The earthquake was about 2 a.m. and it knocked out the power grid. So people going out to assess the damage looked up at the sky, and they'd never seen so many stars before, and they saw the Milky Way, as I was describing, that cloud of light. And they were like really concerned. They thought like aliens were invading or whatever. They called the cops. They called the Griffith Observatory, which is pictured right there in the Hollywood Hills. And they were saying that, no, the Griffith Observatory said that's just the night sky. It's always looked like that, but people had never seen it before. A lot of people haven't, because of course LA is pretty comparable to New York City in its light pollution. This is my favorite image. This is from the 2003 Northeast blackout, which I do remember actually. It affected not just New York City, New Jersey. This image is from the Toronto metropolitan area, just showing the before and after of like what you would normally see over this person's house, and then what he saw during the blackout. So, yeah, we don't need to have blackouts. Blackouts are, of course, not good, but if we just use proper lighting that shines down instead of up, or having our lights on only when we need it, we could actually have our cake and eat it too. Be able to see a night sky like that and protect our wildlife, protect our health, and it's really a win-win. Just the popular constellation of Orion taken at a natural night sky versus a light polluted sky. But yes, we can make a difference. Light pollution is literally the easiest. Light pollution and noise pollution, I'd say, are the easiest types of pollution to solve, because you don't have to like clean it out of the air or clean it out of the water or the soil. It's simply turning something on or turning a switch on or turning a switch off, or just and redirecting light where it's needed. Solution is simply better lighting design practices and policies. Policy plays a big role here in terms of rules about lighting. But essentially, we should follow the 5 principles of responsible outdoor lighting, making sure that our light is actually useful in the first place. That's principle 1. So, save decorative lighting, like for the holidays, Christmas, Halloween. But in general, not really having light that doesn't serve a practical purpose. And the practical purpose of light, I would argue, is for wayfinding at night, just to make sure you're not tripping over obstacles. Secondly, making sure our light is targeted. Here, I got a fully shielded light fixture right here. I don't know if you can see it. Bulb is there, but you cannot see the bulb from above the horizontal plane. So it keeps all light shining diagonally and downward. Does not shine above the horizontal. This reduces glare, like you saw from that floodlight. When we have a shielded light, you don't have that light shining directly into your eye and not up into the night sky. And it also makes it so that it's not hitting those trees, those plants, and hitting into the pollinators. It makes it less likely that birds will see it from above. It's just really a win-win. Using the lowest level of light needed. When you use those shielded fixtures and you don't have that glare coming in your eye, you'll realize you actually don't need the level of illumination that you thought you did, because your pupils are allowed to dilate. And humans can actually have pretty good night vision. Obviously we're not owls, but night vision takes about 20 to 50 minutes or up to an hour for some people. The older you are, your dark adaptation tends to be a little slower. But within about 20 to 40 minutes, you can see a lot better than you would if you just walked out of a bright lit room into the dark. So people underestimate how well they can see in the dark. We've been using candlelight for a long time. Control, making sure that your light is only on when it's needed. This is a big one. I tell people, it's like, you don't need to necessarily go and replace all your light fixtures on your property like right away. If you have a floodlight, just use it to go to the garage if you need something from the garage or whatever. And then when you're done using it, you just turn it off, and then there's zero light pollution. And and with our newer sensors, we have motion censored lighting, right? These things are cheaper than they used to be. So you can have it where you're walking up to your door to open the door, and the light turns on, and then it turns off when you're not using it. So. And warmer colored, I'm going to go a little more into this, but essentially the whiter the light, the more it is like the midday sun and the blue sky, the worse it is in terms of circadian rhythm disruption or a sky glow, having the light because the blue light scatters in the atmosphere, which is why when the sun's out, the sky turns blue. So if we use warmer colored lighting, which is essentially more orange or yellow, it doesn't have that blue spectrum in it, so it scatters less, and it's less hard on our eyes too. It causes less bad glare. So here, just an example of a retrofit that was done at this commercial garage. Before, the light fixtures were shining directly out and up into the sky, causing glare, and then they just put some simple fully shielded fixtures right there, and it's much better. And you can still see everything you need to see in that environment. Just a little visual demonstration here. I pass these out a lot at tabling events, just showing like the lights that shine everywhere versus the best, which is fully shielded lighting on a motion sensor. And just some practical examples here. Those acorn fixtures, they do look nice. And back in the day, we would use gas lamps, right, in those acorn fixtures. So they weren't super bright. But nowadays you put like a 5,000 Kelvin LED bluish white light in there, and it's just blinding, and it just serves no purpose really. So it's better to use our fully shielded fixtures on the right there. The partially shielded fixtures, these are usually what's available at Home Depot. And you might think it's fine because it's shielded on the top. But the thing is that sideways, the glass, when it's shining through the glass sideways, a lot of that light is diagonally going up into the night sky. And most light pollution is actually from diagonal, when it shines diagonally, because it actually goes further from the source, which means you have to get further away from it to be able to see the night sky. That's the light fixture I have on my front porch. simple. That's what it looks like at night. Warm colored, fully shielded, so it's not shining directly in your eye. And up into the night sky. It's different angles there. And that's what it looks like. You know, because I have it mounted high at the top of my staircase, it illuminates. You can see the sidewalk down below. It illuminates everything fine. You don't really need a floodlight. I think a lot of people think you need a floodlight to be able to shine over your whole property, but you can just mount your fixture higher if you need to. It does the same job without the light pollution. Correlated color temperature, we were talking about that before. Basically, when you get towards the white blue end of the spectrum, that's the worst light. You need that light during the day, actually, this was part of my thesis too. Like during the day, it's kind of the opposite. You really need that bright sunlight to activate your energy levels in your brain and stuff and suppress melatonin. And actually, most humans nowadays in our 9-to-5 office jobs, we don't get enough sunlight during the day. Our indoor environments are simply too dim, which leads to lower energy levels. But the opposite is at night. At night, we actually need that. Being exposed to that bright daylight type light keeps us up. So that warmer light is better for our circadian rhythms. And this is a more accurate depiction of the different. The number stands for Kelvin correlated color temperature. The higher the number, the cooler the light, and the lower the number, the warmer the light. Probably a little counterintuitive, but each light bulb that you get from the store will actually now, it'll say like what the color temperature is. It'll say like daylight, it'll say warm. So usually 2700 and lower is like your standard incandescent bulbs. They have that available now with LEDs. So yes. And where to find this lighting? Like this light fixture, I've got a Home Depot for like $30 or something. You know, you can get simple ones, and if you want the motion sensors, probably it's a little bit more. But and I would say in store, there's less options. We're trying to change that. DarkSky is working with retailers to try to, you know, put this more front and center, like neighbor-friendly lighting, DarkSky friendly lighting. There is usually a certification on the box that says that it's DarkSky approved. That's something that DarkSky International does. It approves products, make it easier for consumers to find these types of lighting. And it's available for commercial projects and street lights. If you're working in municipal government or state government and want to get on that. Leading to our responsible lighting ordinances. This is something that municipalities have have a lot of power in, which I've said before. Like municipalities can pass lighting ordinances for their town, making it that, you know, like especially any new projects, any new commercial projects, new development has to meet the DarkSky lighting standards. So essentially having all the light fixtures shine down like this, or, you know, maybe having a lighting curfew, so that maybe like an hour after closing, all lights that are non-motion censored turn off. There's some New Jersey municipalities here that have examples. The one in Saddlebrook there, I actually helped get passed in my town. And there's Mendham just passed one recently, Hopewell Township back in 2019. So this is something that actually is catching on. With the help of ANJAC doing our presentation there, they're really promoting this idea of lighting ordinances. And me and my chapter helped create a DarkSky New Jersey model ordinance template, which I can have sent out to everybody. I can even show you on the screen here, just to make it easier for municipalities to adopt these ordinances. And there's a bill currently in the New Jersey legislature that we helped write, and it passed the environmental committee. Basically, it's that any state-funded lighting project has to use environmentally friendly lighting, so DarkSky compliant lighting. We'll see if it actually it's gotten through some of the executive committees or executive agencies, like the DEP approves of it, Department of Corrections. The Department of Transportation is the one that's pushing back a little bit, but we're going to work on it. I hope I'm not going over in time, but just a couple quick things. This is an example of like in action applying these principles. We have a member, David Ackerman, in Hopewell Borough. He's him and a couple of retired electricians are going around to shopping centers, because obviously money is a thing, you know, like small businesses don't always want to dish out money on new, especially if they just got new lights. So they're going around and retrofitting these lights for super cheap, and it's become very popular. It's gotten some press, and yeah, they just look at the difference between those bright white floodlights and then when they replace them with all warm colored lights that are fully shielded. Makes a big difference. So just for curb appeal too. This is just like how there's studies that show that having more trees on your street increases business in a commercial district. I'd argue it's the same thing with using warmer colored, non-glary lights. It's not just about the night sky. It's about creating a warmer, more inviting environment for people. So my call to action is, if you own property, you could just, turn your lights off when you're not using them, maybe. And if you really feel inspired, you can change the outdoor lights to dark sky friendly fixtures that shine the light down. Spread the word to neighbors and other environmental organizations, just because it is a word of mouth thing. And the reason the reason there is so much light pollution is not because like we're intentionally polluting everything. It's because people just don't even know about the concept of light pollution. They weren't taught it in school. So just it's an education thing. The more people are aware of this issue and how easy it is to solve compared to other pollutions, we can really make a difference here. You can join our New Jersey chapter. It's just free. We meet on Zoom every month and discuss these advocacy events like the talk I'm doing here, and we support each other. Or attend mayor and council meetings. If you're on an environmental commission or you're a council member, can definitely make a big impact with advocating for municipal lighting ordinances. And that's about it. Thank you very much for having me talk here.
Thank you so much, Steve. Really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us about it. I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll for this evening. Please, if you could fill it out. If you decide not to and answer no to the first one, do you consent to the poll? Do not bother filling out the rest of it. That is perfectly fine. It's completely voluntary, but we really appreciate you guys taking the time to let us know what you thought of this and what you learned this evening through Steve's talk. But Steve, thank you so much. We do have a couple of questions that have come in from folks.
Before I answer those questions, do you want me to keep my screen shared, or should I X out of that?
Well, I would say keep it up for just a minute, because one of the questions,
sure. Yeah, sorry.
One of the questions was how do we get Steve's email address to contact him with questions?
There we are, steve.mariconda@darksky.org.
So there it is for folks. I did want to just kind of keep that up there. And someone was asking about who to contact for the model ordinance that you mentioned as well.
Also me.
Okay.
I created the ordinance. So a little background on that. DarkSky International has their own international template. And what we did in the New Jersey chapter is we kind of fine-tuned it a little bit for New Jersey, based on some municipal ordinances that have already passed in New Jersey. So yes, we just created that a couple months ago.
So I did just want to keep your contact information up there, because those were two of the questions that people were asking about. Okay, someone asked about with all the negative impacts from light pollution, is there any impact? They're particularly interested in offshore wind that might be from the lighting from that, and if you guys are looking into that or doing anything about that.
I've definitely heard that raised as a concern. Yeah, I gotta ask more of the DarkSky International folks what they're doing with that. But essentially, the idea is that some of those flashing lights on the top might have somewhat of an impact if there's birds or something flying around these windmills, if that would distract them at all from their migration. But I do know that there are solutions to that, though. In general, it has to do with it also has to do with towers, like cell phone towers. There are actually newer types of lighting technology where it will aircraft detection mechanisms, because the reason the lights are there mainly is so that an aircraft doesn't crash into them. But there are technologies coming out now where the light will only turn on if it detects an aircraft within a certain distance. So yeah, that's something that has been advocated by DarkSky advocates.
One of the other questions that someone asked was the various lights out campaigns that happened during bird migrations. They were wondering if they were pretty effective for areas like New York City or Newark or some of the more urban areas. So
I can say that it definitely has led to the development of legislation in New York. The legislation has not passed yet, but it's definitely on our leaders in New York's their radar, because particularly New York City, as I mentioned before, is very heavily affected by this. I was probably someone at Lights Out that got them to turn off the World Trade Center lights, to have them periodically turn those off every hour or so to let the birds disperse. That was because of Lights Out campaign. So yeah, they're definitely a good partner in this. Also, I can mention something else. We worked with New York Audubon Lights Out to make it so that, I mean, we'll see if this actually goes into effect, but got legislate the authority that goes over the Tappan Zee Bridge, the Mariconda Bridge. They're going to turn their lights off because there's a lot of decorative lights on the bridge. They're going to turn those off during migration. We'll see if they actually do it, but they said they would agree to do it. So just some things that the Lights Out folks are doing that's helping in our area. But we should spread that beyond migration, honestly, because it still affects birds when they're not doing mass migrations.
Birds are nice and visual, and people can wrap their heads around it, so they're nice to kind of. Speaking of birds, Kate asked, how are birds disrupted by the humans changing over from, timely enough, daylight savings time back to standard times? Like, is there anything we can do this week to help mitigate any sort of changes because of the varying light? Because we're using our lights at different times based upon daylight.
Yeah, we basically switched from using lights in the morning to using lights more at night, I guess, because we're heading home from work and it's dark already because we're doing everything later. I mean, I would just say, like, with the awareness that you gained from this presentation, just to utilize some of those principles, like, make sure your floodlight is on a motion sensor, things like that, and just because you can't really do much by car headlights. It is what it is. But yeah, just keep in mind those things, that when you're going about at night, having it be darker earlier than usual.
Okay. And Lenore wants to know, will replacing your outdoor lights with those yellow bug lights, will that work to help with light pollution?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, that's actually yes, basically. I use the amber lights that I use are about 2000 Kelvin. That's the rating, and most the bug lights are good. Like they're definitely an improvement on your standard white bulbs. It's a good measure to put in place when you don't have the money to dish out yet for a fully shielded fixture. Definitely putting the yellow bulb in will there's evidence it does affect it still affects bugs and birds and stuff, but not as much as like the bright white light. So yes, I encourage the use of those bulbs.
You had mentioned you gave the example of the retail space, those different stores and changing the lights there. Anne was asking about working with major colleges and universities like Rutgers or Princeton with their lighting that they have for safety. Is there any plan to work with those kind of campuses to look at reducing their light?
Yes, absolutely. Part of why I'm doing this presentation with Rutgers, I do want to spread the word about it when I did make these. So yeah, universities are an essential part of this, and getting the students and faculty aware of this stuff, and I mean, also, yeah, it's something where you can actually affect, like with a campus like Rutgers, like if you get the utility people on board and stuff like that, you can like demonstrate. It's like a good case study, really, to take these principles out into the wider world. So yes, absolutely. I plan to collaborate more with colleges. I spoke at Passaic County Community College, Montclair State, now Rutgers. So yeah, it's a good point.
Like we were talking at the beginning, we're in cooperative extension, we're in each of the counties, and we all have our own buildings, so that might be a place to look at off campus as well, the lighting that we have.
Absolutely.
So, okay. So a couple of practical questions. One person wanted to know how they can go about purchasing those warmer lights that you were talking about, because all they seem to see are the bright red bulbs that are not very,
Yeah, they're available. I know, like if you just look up online, like the GE vintage bulbs, GE has a product that's an example. It has like an amber glass, and it's like 2000 Kelvin. I found those at Lowe's, not at Home Depot, unfortunately. And if you look up in general, just like lights, warm colored or amber, or you can type in, if you want the more specific number, like anything that has like 2700 Kelvin or lower, I would say it's pretty good. I mean, I prefer 2000, which is really like more of that deeper amber color, but not quite red. I do use red lights when I'm going to sleep though. But for outdoor use, probably amber is a good compromise, or warm white. Should be pretty widely available now. Yeah.
And
Or
just
you can type in Yeah, sorry, go on.
I was just going to remind people to fill in the poll if they haven't done so already and stuff. I didn't mean to cut you off there, Steve.
All good. And if people have any questions about lighting regarding reducing light pollution, feel free to email me and I'll literally send you tons of resources. I'll send you light bulbs, light fixtures. Yeah.
Okay.
Like links so you can purchase them. Yeah.
Okay. Would you be willing to share your slides from tonight?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll send this to you and with a couple other resources too. I kind of wanted to share just a sec.
Yeah.
Out of this.
This is the little bonus features for those who stuck around towards the end with the questions. There was the extra ones.
Right here.
But we'll try to make sure that the slides are available for folks. So
yeah, so I'll send the slides out, and also I can send the model municipal lighting ordinance. This is the one that we made for New Jersey. Just has regulations about the types of lighting that should be allowed in a municipality to reduce light pollution. Yeah. And also for all those that want to look up the scientific research behind this presentation, DarkSky International publishes a state of the science report every year, which goes into a lot of detail. There's over 500 cited studies here regarding how it affects the night sky, regarding how it affects wildlife. It's full of data. So yes.
Yeah. If you want to make those available to us, we can send them out to the people who registered too. So
you got it.
It's kind of a resource packet. So you mentioned the ordinance. There's a few towns that have it. Someone was asking about their neighbor installing extensive lights for their trees, a lot of uplighting for the trees. They wanted to know if you have any suggestions for how they can approach their neighbor to talk to them about, reducing the glare or using something. That's
Oh man, you hit on the area where I'm at. This is actually my biggest weakness in my advocacy. Like I can talk to organizations, I can talk to government. Talking to neighbors can be a little bit difficult because you want your neighbors to like you. I honestly go about it like what I've been doing is I don't actually pick out specific neighbors. What I'm trying to do is I'll go door to door. Like when I see a neighbor out, I'll just give them information about light pollution without addressing like their light directly. I'll just be like, here, have you heard about this? I'm trying to spread the word about this in town. So it makes it kind of like they don't feel like they're being called out. That would be like the first step, I would say. Just give people some pamphlets so they have general information. They might actually look at their lights and see if it matches up with what the literature suggests. And then if it really becomes like more of a problem, or then from that conversation you could be like, hey, you see this light, shining on the tree is not really good for the trees. In fact, if you want your tree to grow better, yeah, just little strategies like that. But it's basically just spreading the word about light pollution, get it on their radar,
And once again, speaking about the ordinances, Laura asked, can you list any arguments against passing a lighting ordinance in your town and how you overcame them in the towns that you were able to get them passed?
So I'll say in my town, my planning board and the mayor and council were surprisingly just for it. They didn't really give me much pushback, except for that they didn't want it to apply to residential. So I was like, okay, fine. Commercial is the biggest culprit anyway. And then streetlights, we weren't allowed to regulate because the municipalities, not all of them own their utilities. So usually PSE&G has a bigger say in what kind of lighting they get. But basically it's like there are going to be some compromises where they don't want to piss off residents too, especially if residents are not aware of light pollution as an issue. There might be pushback about you can't tell me what to do with my lights. So that, and then law enforcement is usually a big pushback in general, like the concept and about crime and safety. Most law enforcement think the brighter the better. You need to have everything just lit up like crazy, but the research really doesn't support that. It makes communities safer. If anything, having the shielded fixtures or using motion sensors is better for deterring criminals. But anyway, so it's just an education thing. You just have to keep showing up. You have to keep educating. If you have an environmental commission or a green team in your town, usually there's a liaison on there that's a council member or on the planning board. That's a really good place to start. Having an environmental committee in town or that has some influence over your lawmakers is definitely key there.
Okay. A couple of people made comments regarding safety issues. Have you run across any pushback in terms of the safety aspect? Not having enough light for people who might like trip or not see where they're going.
Yeah, so that's like the ones. Yeah, so that's actually the one area where in terms of not crime safety, but like actual visual safety, like not tripping over things. like that is that's the main reason why we have lighting in the first place. So like the argument is like if you're using dark sky lighting, like you have plenty of light to see. You're just using fixtures that shine down. So you might have to end up using more fixtures. I think when people use floodlights, it's because they want to illuminate a large area without having to install extra fixtures. But as long as you're installing those extra fixtures to make sure that the area in need of illumination is sufficiently covered by light, there's really no like downside. Your visual acuity, you're not going to be tripping over things because the area is illuminated. And I'd argue you'd be better served if you have vision, because you're not having that glare shine into your eye.
Okay. And so the last question I have is, kind of your kind of picking your brain to see where you would like to go next. Susan asks, would Steve like to take on Atlantic City for its light pollution?
My chapter will definitely help. I mean, like I said, I don't live in Atlanta. I don't live near Atlantic City, so some of our advocates in South Jersey probably tackle that. I mean, yeah, we're trying to spread the word everywhere, right? Yeah. We've had, I think, Atlantic County. About a couple of years ago, one of our advocates got them to pass a proclamation, just saying, we will work we're honoring Dark Sky Week because Dark Sky Week is in April. It's a big awareness thing. So we try to get municipalities and counties and states to pass just resolutions honoring Dark Sky Week. So that did happen in Atlantic County, but no formal ordinance yet. But
yes,
definitely things we're willing to work on.
I think Susan was asking in terms of the amount of neon lights that are in Atlantic
neon,
City.
yeah, neon. Well, you can, if you get an ordinance in place that has, you can control that. I mean, there are examples of towns, not so much in New Jersey, but there are towns throughout the United States that really apply these dark sky principles. They're like dark sky certified towns. So like places like Flagstaff, Arizona, even Colorado Springs recently got certified. So yeah, you can have it in your ordinance that your neon signs have to turn off after a while. Yeah, it's going to be harder in places like Atlantic City. It's going to be harder in places like Times Square or in Vegas. Like there are some places that may never fully take in these principles, but really, you can have some restrictions there. And in general, make a big impact if you have the suburbs outside of Atlantic City take on these ordinances. So.
And so I will let this one be the last question, but thank you all so much for your patience tonight. Phaedra was asking about step lights, like lights that you put underneath the lips on your steps.
Yeah, those are good.
Those are good. Okay, that's what they were wondering. She was wondering
as long as it's actually under the lip on your step, like it's not shining outward that much. I've seen pretty good examples of that. And warmer colored, not super bright white. Yeah.
There you go. Those are good to have as long as they're pointing down and they're not super bright. All right. Well, Steve, thank you so much for tonight. I really appreciate it. A lot of clapping hands that came up towards the end of your talk. Lots of people saying thank you. It was a great topic. Thank you for doing this evening. And thank you all for joining us and participating in the poll. Really appreciate it. So we are all set. If you would like to join us next week on November 10th, we have Dr. Travis Miles, who will be talking about hurricane science. And the song that we have for the theme that night is Rock You Like a Hurricane. So if you want to see how ocean monitoring is used in hurricane forecasting and hurricane science, please join us next week. But thank you all for being here. Really appreciate it. Have a good week, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. Have a good night.